And we used to work with typewriters. We used to have folks around us using typewriters, and then we saw the transition to computers. And now, the things that used to take days or months can be generated with AI in minutes.
Yeah.
So I think the technology is moving so rapidly, and this transition has only happened within the last 2 years. So my suggestion to leaders who are now kind of responsible to incorporate AI within their business strategies is to really keep up with AI news, really keep up with the technology changes, because you want to make sure when you're designing these applications or internal systems that you are making it flexible enough to incorporate the ever-changing AI models that are coming through.
Welcome to Think Deeply, Speak Simply, the podcast that explores the art and science of business communication. Sponsored by Present, the AI-powered platform transforming the way professionals share ideas and tell their stories. And now, here's your host, Rajat Mishra, CEO of Present and passionate advocate for clear and impactful communications.
Communication is at the heart of every successful relationship, whether in business, leadership, or daily interaction. But in today's digital age, AI is transforming the way we connect, collaborate, and communicate. And as AI continues to shape the way we engage with each other, how can we use it to enhance, not replace, our human connection? How do we ensure that AI supports meaningful conversations rather than creating more noise? As Albert Einstein once said, the human spirit must prevail over technology. This sentiment feels more relevant than ever as we explore AI and how AI can amplify and not overshadow the human element in communication. I'm really excited because joining us today is a seasoned leader in AI and digital transformation, someone who has helped organizations leverage AI to improve communication, efficiency, and engagement. He'll share how business leaders can harness AI to build stronger, more authentic communication strategies while maintaining that human touch. So whether you're a business leader, a communicator, or someone simply looking to understand AI's role in the future of connection, this episode is for you. Our guest today is Vivek Mukhatyar, a technology strategist with valuable experience in digital transformation. Vivek has worked with companies to adopt AI for improving customer experience, optimizing operations, and enhancing communication strategy. Vivek, welcome to Think Deeply, Speak Simply. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Rajat. The pleasure is all mine. I'm excited to be part of this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Vivek. So Vivek, you and I have known each other, but just for the benefit of the audience, I would love for you to start with a little bit about yourself and your role as an AI expert in enterprise company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, hi everyone. My name is Vivek. I am part of my role, what I am doing right now, I'm a generative AI medical engagement lead at a pharmaceutical company. I've been in pharma and medical devices for the better part of the last decade, specifically in medical affairs. And medical affairs is very much about communication, where our goal is to take complex scientific concepts and communicate that to healthcare professionals so that they can make the best decisions for their patients. And in that way, we try to find the best content, the best channels where we can engage these clinicians on. And that's sort of I've spent the better part of the last decade doing that. And now, with the advent of AI, that role has become even more important in terms of communication.
Okay, awesome, Vivek. So that's awesome. So let's start kind of broadly with medical affairs and pharma companies. How is AI transforming how pharma companies and medical affairs organizations are evolving?
Yeah, I think it's not just limited to medical affairs and pharma, but AI has had a profound impact on all industries, and then specifically when you talk about communication, it's about personalization, accessibility, as well as more efficiencies, right? So you mentioned efficiencies. AI, and in the age of generative AI and AI, the technologies have been around. If you've ever spoken to an Alexa or a Siri or a Google Home, you interacted with AI. So AI concept is not new. But since the advent of generative AI and foundational models, which encompass the whole entire knowledge of humankind, they provide us with additional tools, and the technology is provided with additional capabilities that improves a lot of efficiency. So from my perspective, when you talk about efficiencies, it's synthesizing simple language summaries from complex scientific literature. Or from an accessibility perspective, I think that's near and dear to me, is that now it opens up avenues to really expand the communicate in variety of different languages. It makes communication more accessible to people with disabilities, right? So AI I've seen being utilized as vision models and things like that to explain the world to someone who's blind, right? So that's something that's fantastic. From a medical perspective, we use it a lot in terms of explaining complex topics and creating plain language summaries, not just for patients, for clinicians, and a variety of different ways. And then finally, in terms of efficiencies, I think there is in all industries, right? The folks are finding ways to use AI to summarize meeting notes, etc. So there's a lot of different ways AI can be leveraged, especially generative AI in these days.
So, Vivek, I love your point about accessibility. Things that we previously thought impossible are now possible with AI, right? And as a fellow technologist, that's exciting to me as well. Let's talk about misconceptions. So, when you think about AI, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about AI that you hear in your work?
Yeah, I think one of the big misconceptions, and I'm thinking about just more of a communication because of the podcast we are doing, but that AI replaces human connection. I think that is incorrect. There is fears around AI will take your jobs or AI will take away the way we connect with people. I think it's more of a facilitator, right? I think it helps provide insights. It takes care of repetitive tasks, but the human element is still essential, right? Human empathy, creativity, decision making, all of these are only going to get augmented by AI. So that's one of the big misconception. The other misconception that it lacks emotions, right? And this could be a controversial one, that it lacks emotions and context understanding, which I think AI specifically is very good. At least the generative AI, that how quickly it's evolving, is starting to get very good at understanding tonality, understanding, and then suggesting appropriate responses that are either culturally more appropriate or emotionally more appropriate, depending on the context, right? So this reminds me of a study that I saw a few months ago. What Google did, that they looked at bedside manners, and one of their models looked at if doctors are better at them or AI is better than them. And what they found was that the patients preferred AI in terms of engagement because it was just a lot more patient in terms of engagement. So, and then the third piece, I think this may not be that new to most of the listeners, is that it's a misconception that AI provides always with perfect, unbiased information, and something that all of us, and I think this is very important for the listeners to understand, is that AI is as good as the data it's trained on, and human knowledge is filled with biases. So those biases do translate into the answers and outputs that it gives you. So our goal is really to use AI responsibly, but there are some misconceptions out there, and you be very careful about that.
Well said, Vivek. So, like you mentioned, right, we are focused on the art and science of communication here at Think Deeply, Speak Simply. So, when you think of AI, you mentioned its role in human connection. So, how can AI help make communication more contextual, bring in that emotion, bring in that empathy, and bring in that connection?
Yeah. I think the AI, like I said, AI is good at understanding language. It is what it's meant for, right? So generative AI, at least I'm simplifying a little bit, but these large language models, they've been trained on human language. So they understand the relationship between these words. So if you are talking about how does it improve our communication, I think it just makes it as more efficient in terms of how, and then we talked about accessibility, right? It allows, we can easily extract key information. It um, it can then synthesize information very quickly. So I think from an efficiency perspective, um, uh, these AI, generative AI, large language models are pretty good on helping us kind of formulate our thinking.
Awesome. And maybe Vivek, it'll be helpful if you can share like one, maybe, you interact with so many real life examples, maybe one real life example of where AI has driven some improvement in communication and connection.
Yeah, I think one of the key ways we try to understand it's especially for the work that I do, understanding healthcare professionals, right? So their jobs are incredibly busy, and the time we get to talk to them is becoming lesser and lesser. So how do we improve the connection? So we actually utilize AI to understand their preferences. So what type of content do they prefer? What type of channels do they prefer? And that's where AI is that's essentially a helper and augments our ability to provide very directed information to our healthcare professionals. And that's one way, right, where we can use sort of traditional machine learning type models to identify what their preferences are, and then leverage that to develop very directed content, right? It could be in form of a social media post or a website, or the material is the same, but then we can do this multi-channel creation of materials using AI. So both from insight gathering as well as content creation, where AI can be very useful.
That's amazing. Both the insight and content, that's very cool. And as you think of these large companies, Vivek, so like you said, you work in a large company. What are some of the challenges that companies face, when it comes to rolling out some of these AI tools? We heard a lot about, last year was a year of pilots, everyone doing pilots. This year is about driving real ROI. So what makes it so hard to adopt AI tools, and what advice would you have to fellow leaders in large companies who are looking to adopt and roll out AI tools in the enterprise?
Yeah, I think the first is being very transparent. I think there are some fears associated with AI tools and launch of AI tools that it will actually replace jobs. So one of my big pet peeves is that it's not that, right? I think if you look at any technological advancement that has happened has had a profound impact on, especially uh, something like AI, right? Technology has only increased the human capability. And similarly, if you're a leader in a company trying to incorporate AI, I would number one thing, all of the data suggests this, that to actually upskill your workers. Just really focus on getting knowledge to your workers. What are the good and what are the bad of AI? How to use AI responsibly? How to use it efficiently for the specific domain application that you're working on. It's really this upskilling from an AI knowledge has the most impact. Now, the other aspect that I get asked about a lot is that it's actually can well one of the ways to really propel AI adoption within your company is by starting small and doing as many pilots as possible. So it's just understanding where the ROI is, understanding what impact of a specific application. But again, hands down, align yourself with the business goals, right? Make sure that whatever application you're trying to develop, it aligns with whatever. If it's an efficiency play, if it's cost savings, it is to improve productivity. As long as it's aligned, I think you'll have better success. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well said, Vivek. It all starts with, like you said, the business objectives, and the AI tools are using to achieve that business objective, not the other way around. But can I just pull a thread? You mentioned something very interesting. a thought around upskilling. And we see that also in interaction that the many busy professionals are not ready to use AI tools, and many companies don't invest in upskilling them. And that's why sometimes they don't get the ROI from AI tools, right? So if you think of this upskilling, maybe you can share some examples of how you and your team uh, upskilled the workforce around using AI. We often find our customers saying, "Hey, there's a V12 engine here, but I don't know how to use it because I don't know how to prompt it or work with it."
Yeah. No, I think there's an example that I really like. So when you looked at, in the early 1900s, horse carriages were the modality of transport. And I have a really nice picture of the Fifth Avenue in New York. And you look at the 1900s, and just 10 years later, motor vehicles came, and then it didn't, the skill set of horse riding didn't go away. It just became a hobby, and and automobiles really took over. I think it's a similar vein that this is a transformative technology. We know it's going to change industries. It's going to change business models, similar to the automobiles did back in the day. I think the ways we do it is the way I like doing this. And how do I every interaction I have, I will bring AI to the discussion to really talk to my colleagues about how they can leverage it on a daily basis in everything that they do. But I've also seen a variety of industries. I'll give an example. Infosys, they have 300,000 people, and they were able to upskill 80% of them by just developing this sort of black belt, green belt, white belt type, high, extremely pros, and they've just developed a bunch of different programs to help them. Another one in my arena in pharma world, Moderna helped bring they brought to, I think they brought to every single person in the company. They launched ChatGPT, and they actually incentivized the users, and they were giving incentives to users who actually were developing tools with it. And they found that once they were exposed to the tools and almost forced to use the tools, they found just 8 or 900 different custom GPTs were created in 6 months at launch.
Wow.
So there is a lot of it. There's no substitute for diving directly into AI.
Yeah. No, I love that example. And many of these companies are doing it at scale, Vivek, to your point, right? So there is no reason why companies should not be upskilling their workforce. You had mentioned earlier, Vivek, about the point around AI safety, AI transparency, and biases and ethics, right? So how can companies in the enterprise make sure that they're using AI ethically and with transparency?
Yeah, I think it was even more important in the healthcare space where we are in.
Yeah.
We're always constantly making sure. So, we think about predictive algorithms that use AI to determine treatment regimens. So, what are the data that feed these algorithms trained on? Are they including all of the geographical information, ethnicities, cultural, other informations that actually help predict, patient outcomes? So that's one aspect. So the type of data is extremely important. But the other thing is fair use and responsible use, right? So every technology can be used in nefarious ways. We know, especially communication technologies, right? That we know, TVs was used for propaganda. Printing press was used and social media has been used for misinformation. So it's the same way with AI. There is even more of an opportunity to do deepfakes, right, and things like that. So just educating the team on responsible use is important. And the other thing they can do from education, of course, is great. And then repeat the question again. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the question was, how can leaders make sure that they're using AI ethically, responsibly, and with transparency in the organization. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, these are some of the ones. You know, I think having good guidelines and AI guidelines and good governance models for AI applications, especially if they are customer facing. And then finally, again, this is in every AI system, have a human in the loop, right? Have a human verify AI's answers. We know that uh, AI has all of this benefit of personalization, efficiencies, but the human touch is always going to be required, at least in the near term, and at least based on what the technology is capable of today. Human touch is going to be required, and having a human verify the answers, be the one that makes a decision based on the AI's answers, is another way to kind of protect
Yeah.
your institution.
No, those are great points, Vivek. Like the training data set shouldn't have bias, some governance. And at present, we also kind of believe that the last mile, you need the human in the loop to make sure, AI can drive 90% efficiency, but you need that human touch for the last mile. So it's an enhancer for people, not a replacement, right? So let's change gears a little bit, Vivek. Let's look into the future, right? So AI has, of course, changed a lot in the last 12 to 18 months. Let's look, 2 years out from now. And let's start at the broad level in the enterprise AI. How do you see AI evolving in the next 2 years in the enterprise? What do you see are the major trends or shifts?
Yeah, I look at technology as sort of like 2 years ahead of every other company. So most of the technology companies are transitioning into an AI company. So every function is going to be an AI function. And from a communication perspective, right, I think AI is going to unleash a lot of new modalities. So we are just starting to experiment with voice models, video models, and it's going to unleash creativity that is unlike what we've seen. And if you just see some of the videos on Sora or Luma, what a human imagination is, I think we're only going to be limited by creative imagination. Imagination, that's my prediction for the next 2 to 3 years. The way we communicate with each other, I think we've seen the impact of social media on communication. Right, we are doing a podcast right now, and that is a new modality of communication. But imagine with the tools where we have AI just enhancing everything that we do, with all these different modalities, AR, VR, immersive environments, multimodal synthesis. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see.
Yeah.
But that's what my prediction
You're
is.
saying it's not just about the efficiency. We, of course, will get more efficient, but there'll be whole new modalities of communication that we cannot even imagine now, which will be made possible in 2 to 3 years, right? And one of the things, Vivek, I find when I talk to many business leaders, they want to stay ahead in the game of AI. And so what advice would you have for leaders who are, especially AI-powered communication? What can they do now to make sure that they are ahead of the curve and harnessing the best of AI for their own companies?
Yeah, I think it's the AI and the technology is changing so rapidly. It's unlike any other technology I've ever, I've been, and you and I come from kind of similar backgrounds. And we used to work with typewriters. We used to have folks around us using typewriters, and then we saw the transition to computers. And now, the things that used to take days or months can be generated with AI in minutes.
Yeah.
So I think the technology is moving so rapidly, and this transition has only happened within the last 2 years. So my suggestion to leaders who are now kind of responsible to incorporate AI within their business strategies is to really keep up with AI news, really keep up with the technology changes, because you want to make sure when you're designing these applications or internal systems that you are making it flexible enough to incorporate the ever-changing AI models that are coming through, and having good governance in place. I think that's another piece. But my other prediction is really that each individual contributor in an organization will have their own set of agents and their own set of AI tools. So it's really going back to good management practices, making sure that your teams are upskilled and we talked about it, and I cannot harp enough on it. That is a huge transition, similar to the transition we've had with a Nokia phone to an iPhone. It required a new way to interact with technology, or a horse carriage to an automobile. This technology shift requires us to relearn a lot of different concepts.
Yeah. Well said, Vivek, because we find many people we interact with, they work with AI and look for an answer. But now, of course, the modality with AI is you have to interact with the machine to keep improving the answer, and people have to learn. So I 100% hear you on the upskilling point and how we interact with machine. So, let's switch gears, Vivek. I would love to go through the quick fire. So I have a few questions for you. I'll just kind of mention them and tell me the first word or sentence or phrase that comes to mind.
Will do.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
All right. What's one word you would use to describe the art of communication?
To me, it's respect. I think you start with the respect. I think that's half the job will be done if you approach any communication with respect.
Awesome. What's a common communication myth you wish people would unlearn?
Yeah, I think it's confidence equals competence. I think, in the world that I live in, I think data-driven decisions are so important that I think there's too much bias given to confidence in terms of competence. So.
Okay. If there was one piece of advice you could give to someone preparing for a big business presentation, what would it be?
Oh, this is a great question. I will channel Indira Nui. I like her approach to this is storytelling. And when you're giving a presentation, focus on storytelling. She's an ex-CEO of PepsiCo. And those words always resonate with me. So how can I create a better story when I'm doing a big presentation?
What's something, Vivek, you knew about communication when you started your career? Something you wish you knew about communication when you started your career?
Okay. And this I learned from my first PI. And he's an incredible communicator, but the thing is, he's one of the best listeners. So every time I had a discussion with him, I came out so motivated. And I think that was just the ability to listen actually will make you a better communicator. And I wish I knew that a long time ago.
Right. Excellent point. Finally, what's the most common mistake you see people make when they're trying to communicate their idea?
I think oversharing, trying to be concise. You need to understand and look at it from other person's perspective. I think that's another big thing for me. That they always just do a dump of knowledge without understanding what the context is. And actually that applies to AI too. So you want to provide a lot of context to AI without outputs.
Well, thank you. That was great. So Vivek, anything else we have not covered or discussed around AI communication that we should talk about?
No, I think AI is going to be a powerful enabler of communication of a lot of business processes, and it's the folks who will actually adopt and be curious about the technology, start using it. And I'll leave on these 4 mantras from this author that I really like, Ethan Mollick. He's a big key opinion leader in the space of AI, and he says this 4 mantras. So always bring AI to the table. So everything that you do, bring AI to the table. Treat AI like a human being. So give it a role, give it more context, then it will actually provide you better outputs. The third thing is be the human in the loop, right? These systems are still in its infancy. They've only been around for 2 to 3 years. They're probabilistic systems. They can often make up stuff. So you want to be the human in the loop. And then finally, this is the worst AI that ever will be. And I like that idea because we are only going to get improved, and it's going to transform our world. So
I love that. Vivek. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on AI and communication. I mean, from this conversation, Vivek, it's clear that AI isn't just a tool for efficiency and automation, but a way to enhance how we connect, how we build relationships, and how we communicate with greater clarity. So, our listeners, before we close, where can our listeners find you and find a way to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Please find me on LinkedIn, and if there's anything I can do to help, or if you want to brainstorm, I'm always open.
Thank you again very much, Vivek. This was an incredible conversation. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we'll dive deeper into how technology continues to reshape the way we communicate with another fantastic guest. Until then, let's think deeply, speak simply. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Think Deeply, Speak Simply. This episode was brought to you by Present, your secret weapon for brilliant presentations. Visit present.ai to transform how you communicate. Until next time, keep thinking deeply and speaking simply.